Loitering offence. In response to the growth in teenage law-breaking, the government instituted a scheme 2 years ago to deter young delinquents from a career in crime. This regime has taken its name from a phrase used by Home Secretary William Whitelaw in parliamentary debate 4 years ago. The system, he said, should provide for every boy going through it a short, sharp shock.
Change direction. Left, turn.
In 1979, Alan Clarkey's Scum was released to a rage of outrage and controversy, sparking debates on censorship in Britain. Branded the film they tried to ban, it forced the country to confront the brutality of its own juvenile detention system, the Borstal. Clarkey's work wasn't just a film, it was a challenge to the state itself. By exposing institutional violence on the screen, Scum held up a mirror that many would rather turn away from. But before Scum made it to cinema screens, it was already notorious. Clarkey had originally directed the story as a television play for the BBC in 1977. The BBC, terrified of its content, refused to broadcast it, effectively banning it from the public view. The play was shelved, but Clarkey wasn't done. 2 years later, he remade it as a feature film. With the same uncompromising vision, only this time, it couldn't be hidden. What Clarkey revealed wasn't just isolated violence, but a systemic cruelty. Scum is less about individual failure and more about the machinery of an institution designed to break young men, rather than reform them. The Borstal is presented not as a space for rehabilitation, but as a pressure cooker of violence. Every interaction is rooted in hierarchy. Guards dominate inmates, while inmates establish their own brutal pecking order. Clarkey strips away any illusion of reform. Instead, we see a world where discipline means humiliation, and authority thrives on intimidation. The system is not merely indifferent to violence, it depends on it. Guards look the other way, or worse, actively encourage aggression. The result is a cycle where brutality becomes the only language that holds meaning.
Back, Ross!
Scum is relentless in showing how the Borstal dehumanises everyone trapped inside it. Inmates are stripped of their identity, spoken to as if they're objects. Even the guards, in their performance of authority, seem hollow, mere extensions of an institution that functions on fear. The line between victim and perpetrator begins to blur because survival demands cruelty. This is most vividly embodied in the character of Carlin, played by a young Ray Winston. Carlin rises through the ranks of the inmates, not through cleverness or negotiation, but through sheer unflinching violence. To endure the system, he must replicate its brutality. He becomes a leader, but at a cost. His authority rests entirely on force. Clarkey makes it clear, survival in the world requires becoming part of its machinery. Clarkey exposes the pervasiveness of racism inside the Borstal. Black inmates are singled out, harassed and brutalised, both by guards and fellow prisoners. Violence in this environment isn't just about survival. It's about asserting dominance in a world that offers no other form of status. These moments aren't softened. They remain some of the film's most uncomfortable sequences, underlining how the institution reproduces prejudice of the wider society outside its walls. Part of what makes Scum so powerful is Clarkey's filmmaking style. His use of stark, unflinching realism places the audience inside the Borstal with no escape. There's little music, no stylization, and no comforting distance. The camera lingers, forcing us to sit with the violence and the silence in between. The Borstal becomes a stage for a desperate power struggle, where every act of violence reinforces the institution's logic.
Archer, the rulebook. The rulebook says exercise is dependent on the weather. It looked like rain.
But it didn't, sir.
Dirty cell, Archer. Governor's report.
To submit is to be erased. To resist is to be destroyed. What makes Scum devastating is its refusal to offer redemption. There is no good guard, no reformer waiting in the wings. The system that claims to reform instead manufactures more violence by forcing boys into brutal hierarchies. Borstal teaches that cruelty ensures survival. Rehabilitation is impossible when the system itself is corrupt. When every guard, every rule, every brick of the institution is built on the assumption that these young men are already lost. Upon its release, Scum was met with outrage. Some critics dismissed it as gratuitous, accusing Clarkey of exploiting violence rather than critiquing it. Others defend it as a necessary act of truth-telling. The censorship battles only amplified its impact. The more authorities tried to suppress it, the more it was talked about. In a decade since, Scum has taken on a new life. It's now regarded as one of the most harrowing portrayals of British institutions ever put to screen. Its influence can be seen in modern prison dramas and through raw, social realist directors like Shane Meadows. But none have matched its unflinching portrayal of the way power and violence intertwine. Scum remains important because it understands that true violence lies not only in fists, but in the very structure of power. When a system designed to rehabilitate instead dehumanizes, it doesn't just fall, it ensures that brutality will spread beyond its walls. The film isn't simply about Borstal life. The film is about what happens when society abandons the idea of change and chooses punishment over humanity. And in that sense, Scum isn't just about boys behind bars. It's about us and the institutions we allow to define justice.
What I want this time.